We're beginning the second parak of Eruvin. Osin Pasin. We're going to be beginning with talking about Pasei Biro. So Osin Pasin Lebiro. So you put up these Pasin, these boards for wells. So now so what exactly is that? So here I'm going to share a screen because diagrams are very helpful for this one. So I hope everybody can see can see the diagram here. So now we're going to read the Mishnah. We're going to line up all the elements of the picture that'll hopefully make it make sense. So when we say Osim Pasal Biro, so it's Arba Diumdin Nirin Kishmona, Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda says what you do is you put up 4 corner posts. So those are the 4 corners that are each, an L or gam because is how the Gemara / Rashi would be explaining because they use Greek letters. They don't have English letters. Right? So that would be the shape of an L, like on the corners. That way you get 2 that are actually 8. So you get 4 that are 8 because basically each of them are sticking out in multiple directions. Okay, so there's 4 there's 4 corners. That makes for 8 total. That means that it ends up effectively being 8 because each of them extend to reach the other ones. So Remeir Omer Shmona Nirin Kishnemasar. So Remeir says that you have 8, meaning you get the corners as well as a post in the middle. Right? So the machlokes between Remeir and Rabbi Yehuda is whether or not you have this post over here in between the corners. So Arba Diumdim or Arba Pshutim. So that means so his opinion is you get 4 Diumdim, which is the corner pieces, and you get 4 flat ones. The straight ones simply are in the middle of them. So how about then when we're talking about both the corners as well as the flat pieces, how big are they? So Bohan Asar Tvachim Rochban Shisha Vavyon Kolshu. So we say that the size of each edge of each board, whether it means the pshutim or the diumdim, is supposed to be 10 tvachim tall, 6 tvachim wide, and a thickness of any amount. Ubenehem kumlosh deir bakot shal shalosh bakar very mayor. And what's the maximal gap you can have? So scrolling down a little bit, here we go. So it means 2 teams of cattle, each made up of 3 cattle.
4.
Okay, so that ends up being 6. Okay.
4.
How many is it?
Right,
I think it's 1, 2, 3.
4. I'm not arguing the diagram. I'm translating the. I'm just translating the Mishnah.
I'm falling asleep counting cows, or is that the same as counting sheep?
Honestly, I'm not sure. But as far as the total number is so again, that's the next opinion. The photos of Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, which is that of 4. So pretend the last one's missing. Okay? Pretend there's only C6.
In other words, don't have a cow.
Yes, don't have a cow. So Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shel Arba. Rabbi Yehuda says 4. Okay? And now when he says 4, he says Shurut V'lo Mutarot. Achat Nichneset Le'achat Yotzeit. So it means that when we're counting them, we're saying they're all tied together. Meaning so. Meaning they're a little tighter fixed in there, and then achat nichneset v'achat yotzeit, and one can go in and one can go out. Meaning the amount of space being like just enough the way one can go in and one can go out, not like a huge gap in between.
Rabbi, so
yeah.
The reason why Rabbi Yehuda would need more cows because he doesn't hold by having to have the middle board, so he has more of a space to fill in as opposed to the other one where it said you have the board in the middle.
No, we'll get to the why that The space. The question is, what is sufficient to make it considered to be a wall? Not necessarily the maximal gap in between.
Okay.
Meaning, as in, we'll get there. The Gemara will discuss this. Excellent question. But for now, they're just saying what is the between the two Yomdin, what's the maximal gap, not including not counting in terms of putting both forward there or not. The Gemara will hopefully we'll discuss this more at length to say what's the total, maximum. So okay, so mutar l'hakriv leve'er. So you're allowed to get closer to the to the well. Bilvad shetahei par rashab rabah b'fnim v'shota. Okay. And so if turns out, how is the animal allowed to drink? So it means it has to be a situation where most of the animal can get into the pasim in order to drink. Right, that's the minimum size. We're talking about max, we're not talking about minimum. Okay, mutar laharcha kol shu bavad shir bevasin. And in fact, if you even make it bigger, then what we've been stating until now of the number of cattle. Just the difference being is that you'd have to put more posts up. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rad Beit Time. And Rabbi Yehuda says you can even use Pasiviro to be until Beit Time, which is 70 amot a little bit. That's 70 amot and a little bit for our 5,000 square amot. So Amru Beit Time El Lagina El Karpa. Now, when they said that you have here, so this is the case of, so now I have the diagram of the adding many posts. The question is, when we're saying you're adding more, so what are we allowing that for? So that's not for Pasvirol, that's talking about a Gina and a Karpov. So a Gina and a Karpov, so a Gina would be a, let's scroll down so we can see the, here we go. So everybody can see the pictures. So we've got right. So a gina would be a garden, and a karpaf is again, this is also a large discussion as to what which we get into the Gemara as to what a karpaf is. But for now, we're going to use the definition of Rashi that it's a large enclosure outside of the ear where you used to use for storage. Okay, so we'll get into more of the exact details of what its features are later, but for now we'll go with that. Rashi is basing himself off the Gemara. Right, so, and it's not a place for you, it's not a house, it's just a storage area. Okay, so we'll get into that more later. Well, im hayadir, but so that's when there's a limit. But let's say something was a deer, meaning that's a storage, that's a barn. Okay, so that's what you see here, right? Is this just or actually more technically be a not a beit makar, it's a storage. What would be a corral? Everything less English word, corral. Sorry, I haven't been out west in a while, so a little rusty. Okay.
Not many corrals in Eretz Yisrael, I presume.
There are some. Oh, actually, here the word okay. I'm looking at okay, or it could be translated as a pen. Okay, I mean it's a storage place for animals. I think just corral just sounds better. Okay, and then we've got then there's a sahar, which is a stable. Omukse, right, which is a backyard. Right, so chatzer, which is the front yard. Right, remember, so in the old times, remember the chatzer is one that you used to use a lot. The backyard you received a lot less use. Afilu, and so for these, as opposed to for a gina and a karpov, which have a limited size, a beit satayim, these afilu beit chamesh korin, afilu beit asar korin, mutar. But for these, there's no limit, right? Even 5 beit core or 10 beit core is still fine. Okay, similarly, by all these enclosed areas, it's sufficient as long as you, like, assuming your gaps aren't too large, just keep adding more and more boards and posts in between, boards, then it'll be okay, right? Because we have because there's the Yumdin, and then there's so in terms of making this type of wall, so it seems to be that as long as the gaps aren't too wide, it should be thoroughly used. So now we were talking a lot before about the previous time we ran into Pas Birot was when we were trying to use it as a source for there being no limit on width. Here, so here we got the pictures of Sar, the front yard and the backyard. And again, with the front, when the ancient front yard bench was where they used to do a lot of things. Okay, so now so yes, okay, so we'll leave this one up. Lift this one up, and then we'll get as far as the details of the bureau. We will get to, and then I'll reference back to the relevant photos when we get to. Okay, so again, last time we had Pas Bureau. Can we try to use that as a source for that? It's okay if you have a majority of the space that's empty as opposed to filled in, which we're looking at our diagram, right? It very much looks like it's mostly empty, but we said no, you can't compare Pas Bureau to anything else because Pas Bureau is a unique case. So now the Gemara is going to start taking apart the what is unique about Pas Bureau and comparing it with other things and see when they overlap, when they don't. So Lema Manid Lo Chananya. So let's say that our Mishnah is not like Chananya. The Tanya, as stated in the Beit, Osin Pasim Labor Chavalan L'Shera. So because it says in the Beit that you make Pasim for a bore, like what we just did. Chavalan L'Shera, and you can make a wall of ropes for a encampment. Chananya Omer Chavalan Labor Aval Lo Pasim. He says you can't do this thing with putting up the little corners. Rather, you have to do a proper wall out of ropes, like we're talking about by Shera, by caravan. So they would say, a few tamer chananya, bor l'chud, be'er l'chud. No, but kastuli chananya, because again, the word there was bor, right? So bor is a cistern, be'er is a well. What's the difference between a cistern and a well? Cistern is a gathering, is where rainwater gathers, whereas a be'er, a well, tends to tap into an underground aquifer, and that's where the water comes from. So there are two different types of places the water comes of water sources. So you could
is one of the main differences that one where the water could dry up and the other it won't? Like,
yes, the water is going to get into that soon.
Okay.
Very good. So Ikad Amri Midalok Dani Chananya Omer Otzen Chavalan Labor Nupasim Labe'er. So the thing is, but if he really said that, he should have said that. He should have said, like, since he didn't state that you do ropes for a cistern and boards for a well. Michlal L'Chananya Loshna Bor Loshna Be'er Chavalan in Pasim Lo. So implies that he says they're both same thing, and you can only use rope walls. You can't use the pasin. So, lema manid lo chananya. I feel the no. So does that mean that it's not? I mean, not like chananya. No, I feel the tema chananya. Lemay kama tanakama kama haderle. So maybe maybe he was simply responding to returns in kind to the Tanakama in this statement which said bor. So maybe he really does hold by be'er. So, Lim Madid Lo Rabbi Akiva. So this Mishnah probably is not like Rabbi Akiva then. Because what does Rabbi Akiva say? I did not. The Rabbi Akiva states in the Mishnah, Echad Be'er Harabim, Echad. Sorry, this is in terms of Tanakama then. Okay, so Echad Be'er Harabim, Bor Harabim, Uber Yachid, Osin Lam Pasi. Aval Bor Yachid, Osin Lo Mechitza, Gvoa Sarat Vachid. Rabbi Akiva. So here, Rabbi Akiva is stating that if you had whether it be a public well, a public cistern, or individual as well, you can do pasin. But if it's an individual cistern, you have to actually make a real wall. Very big kiva, right? So but again, as we mentioned before, it's possible that you could do that with chavalim as well. So it seems that he's got a problem with simply using pasim for all borot and be'erot. So the ilu hachaktani lebirot in levorot lo. But here it seems pretty clear. He said that for a be'er it works, but for a bor it doesn't, right? So wells are fine to use pasim, but not for cisterns. So, and now we get to Joel's point. So, afilu tema Rabbi Akiva be'er mayim chayim depsika loshna drabim loshna diachid. You're right. So that's why does Rabbi Akiva say the difference between what's the weird part about a well? That a well, whether it's an individual's well or a communal well, it'll never run out of water because it keeps replenishing itself. Veloshna yachid. Right, so there wouldn't matter whether the well is a communal well or an individual well, will be fine. But and then when it says bor, which is gathered waters, as opposed to meaning as it comes from rainwater. So the lo psikale, so as in loktani, so as in right, but then we have that of the bor, which in theory could. So lema manidin. So right. So that's where we have our problem, right? And as far as why Rabbi Akiva differentiates the differences between right. So a bor of rabim odds right. So we would be more lenient with also because odds are you're not going to end up using it a lot because it's not only yours, it's everybody's, as opposed to that of the yachid, which very well might run dry. Okay. So lema manidin lo Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. So let's say that our Mishnah doesn't follow Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. None. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava Omer Enos in Pasin Ela Be'er Harabim Bilvad. Right, so he says only time you're allowed to use pasim is for a public well, nothing else. But in our Mishnah it says biraot for all be'ers. It doesn't differentiate. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava my biraot to alma my dium. Right, so what he said he meant. Right, so. Right, so he meant the average well, which might be that of a communal one, and therefore it can still apply to his opinion. So ma Jiyamdin Amar Yirmiyah Ben Elazar. What's the etymology of Jiyamdin? It's Dayo Amodin, sufficiently standing. Okay. So now we have a nice mnemonic over here, right? Dayo lamanuda shavach zunit nitkalkel b'mida shlosha siman. Right. So this is basically a way to help you remember this the coming Gemara. So what they all mean, we will see in just a moment. Okay. So it's non hatam. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Kol Hashitin Turin Chutz Min Hadifra. So now we're talking about right, the Shitin, right? So what are Shitin? So Rashi says Shitin are types of Minei Ta'anim Ra'ot. They're types of bad figs. So right, so we're talking about saying that they're patur from and when they patur from Rashi min admai kivan deraoten v'lochas alayu amaretz v'yisra. Basically, so it says these things are. So which things don't we? This is we don't have to worry about for dmai is these bad figs. So why is that the case? Basically because the aretz wouldn't therefore, since it's so not so valuable, they'll do trumas masters because they're not worried about something going wrong. They're like, I'll do it because it's not worth that much money anyways. What's the big deal? Or people tend to cut corners when there's a lot of money involved. There's nothing at stake. People tend to they'll probably be more scrupulous. So chutz min hadiyafra, except for that of the diyafra. So what's right? So diyafra is a region and as well as a type of fig. So those are the fancy ones. So with those, right? So with those, there's right. So what is diyafra? So by diyafra amar ula ilan asose Dio Perot Loshana. So now we're continuing. Now it's talking about like we were doing before about again etymologies. So why is it called a diuf para? Because it does do double the fruits. Okay. So next we have Amr B'Yirmiyah ben Elazar diu partzuf panim hayalo adam rishon. Again, not more things with the word diu. So we've got that we said Adam Rishon had two faces. Shenemar achor v'kadim sartani. Right. So backwards and forwards have been created. And as well, and that's the pasuk in Tehillim, and then we have the pasuk in Bereshit, Parak Bet, that Vayiven Hashem Elokim et Hatzela, and then he took Hatzela and built. And then basically, God built out from the man's rib, the woman. So Rav Shmuel Chadamar Parsuf v'Chadamar Zanav. So one says that means that he had two phases, right, or potentially two full bodies, or that he had a tail. If you want to say that he had, another face on the other side, that makes sense, right? Because that's why it says, forward and back, right? But you say it's if you say it's a tail, my achor v'kedem sartani. But if you want to say that it's a tail, what does that mean? Front and back have been created, or you informed me. Like, what does that mean? So Rabbi Yami, Achor l'maaseh Bereshit v'kedem l'paranut. So what is this achor? So what is this pasuk in Tehillim referring to? It refers to that Adam Rishon was created at the end of maaseh Bereshit. Is the last thing created, but v'kedem l'paranut. But it was currently before he was punished. Before he kicked out. So that's that moment in time. That's why it's called achor v'kedem. So I understand the logic that he's saying that he's the last thing created because he was, created right on the sixth day right before Shabbos, on our Shabbos. So Ella, what do you mean by before the punishment? So if you're saying that it's, in terms of the ordering of the punishment, well, then that doesn't work because he's not the first punished, right? He's actually the last one punished. So what do we mean when we say that it's kedem l'paranut? So kedem, so that sounds like he's the first. So how do you explain that? How do you explain that? That ella lamabel. Rather, it means that he is, that man is first for punishment in terms of the mabel. The is what he says. Right, in Parak Zion, Pasuk Chav Gimel of Bereshit, Vayimach Akol Yakum Asher Al Panei Ha'adama Me'adam Ba'ad Be'ema. So there, when it says that God wiped out everything that was standing across all of the earth, and it says from man to animals. Therefore, that's where man got his just desserts and was punished first. So I understand. If you want to say that you say that the man was created with two faces, rather than Eve was originally the face of the side of Adam, right? So that makes sense. I know you say Vayitzer with two yuds. Elamad Amarzan of my Vayitzer. But why would you say Vayitzer and God created with two yuds, according to the opinion that Adam was created with a tail? So how do you explain that? So get Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, Damar Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. Oily miyitzri, oily miyotzri. Right. So, what is the purpose? Why is there an extra yod to teach you this drasha that woe is to me for the fact that for my evil inclination, as well as woe to me as in it's bad for me that I do the wrong thing. Right. So it's basically my yetzer and my yotzer are always one of them will be upset at me. Right, because either I'll be doing what either the Yetzer Hara is right or God's right. One of them gonna be angry at me. So either way, somebody's gonna be upset. So
are we saying that the two yuds here is that He had two Yetzers, one Yetzer Tov, one Yetzer
No,
Ra?
it's saying to teach you that there's a Yotzer and there's a Yetzer, right? There's the person who
Okay.
created you, God, and then there's
Yeah.
your own, inclinations. So that
Okay.
both of them will not be happy.
Okay.
So you have to bear in mind the two Yetzers, or
Got
like the Yetzer and the Yotzer. So now we're continuing on with the question of was Adam Rishon created with two faces or with two bodies, meaning man and woman put back to back, or if about the tail again. So now we've got more. Now we're continuing on with the with more psukim, trying to figure out which one of these makes more sense. Based on all the parts of Zachar and Akiva Baram. If you want to say that they have that back to back or two faces, that works very well. When it says male and female, they were created as one thing, as male and female. Alamanda Amar Zana, my Zachar and Akiva Baram. But if it's just a tail, what on earth does Zachar and Akiva Baram mean? The Rabbi Abo, as Rabbi Abo states, the Rabbi Abo, Rami, as Rabbi used to do with Darshan, Kedustiv, Zachar, Udikiva Baram, Uti, B'Tsen Lokim Barotam. Right? So it created male and female, as well as God created male and female, as well as God, as in the image of God, they were created. So, Betchila Alta B'Shnayim. Initially, God wanted to create two. God initially planned on creating two. Maybe God originally planned to have the back to back, but in the end, He only created one, and that's why, since it says in the end, it says Barao Betselem, which is singular, and also Barao To singular. So therefore, in the end, you can't say there was a pairing created, or the language there should reflect that. So another one. So when the Pasuk says, and it calls the flesh in its place, that makes sense according to either the two-headed option or the back-to-back one, because God had to add more flesh. But if it's created from a tail, then what on earth is closing up the flesh in its space? Because there's not much that God's got to fix either on the side of Adam or of Chava, for closing up. Like it's just tail's a little hole. It's not a big deal, right? So you're right. So the answer is that that's enough. That little hole is sufficient. Like that's what's referring to. Not referring to constructing the entirety of Chava's body around, or if they're back to back, like removing the entirety of the the whole backside. But instead it's talking about just the point of the incision. Okay, so according to now we're gonna say maybe there's some cases where there's enough is an easier explanation, because when it says that God that God built a woman, so then if you start with the tail, that requires a lot of building. So if Adam and Chava were originally full created back to back created beings, what is God building? It's already there. He's just separating it. So look at Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh, the Darish Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh, even Hashem Kim et Selah. And so according to the Pasuk, that God built up the Selah. So Melamed Shekilak Rosh Baruch Hu L'Chava V'Yan L'Adam Rishon. So that teaches us that Hashem braided Chava's hair and brought her before Adam Harishon. Shekain B'Korachei Hayam Korean L'Klita B'Niyata. And that because in some foreign countries the term for braid is B'Niyata, is building. So, which also that you say that also makes sense. On another side is that also sometimes if you can actually, if you're using a braid, if you're using braid in different hairstyles, they actually do look like you actually built something. You make, for more on that, please see a hairstyle. That's not me, but I have seen interesting hairstyles using braids. So not another option. What do I mean by how do we explain the Vayiven point? Vayiven Hashem Elokim Amar Chesta. So what does this teach us? It teaches us about a manner of the way the woman's body is created. It's created like a storehouse. Just like when you're building a storehouse, being wired on the bottom and then narrow at the top. in order to better store the fruits. Similarly, the shape of woman is also, more, again, let's say the man is, the man is, viewed either as a triangle or as an apple, right upside down triangle, whereas, woman would be more in the pear shape, wide on the bottom, because better for childbearing. Right, because to hold the fetus. So that's why men was by their shape differently. So Darwin stole from here. Vayivia el Adam, right? So then we say when God brought her to man, right? When Hashem brought Chava together with Adam, Melamed Shasa Kadosh Baruch Hu Shush Vinot La Adam Rishon. So this implies that that Kadosh Baruch Hu was basically Adam Rishon's best man because he brought him he brought his wife to him. Mikan lagadol she'aseh shush v'nit lakatan v'al yiralo. Here we learned that a great individual should serve as the best man for somebody who is lesser, and he should not feel bad about doing so, because God was the first best man, so it's a seat of honor. Okay. L'mad amar partzu of Chaim inayu sagi bereisha. And the person who says that it was that the Chava was the we have either the two faces or the back-to-back bodies. So Hamanah segregation, who would so which way was front, which way was back? So Amar B'Nachum Metzger Mistaber de Zachar Sagi Bereisha. So he says that men walk first. Tanya Lo Yalech Adam Achorei Isha V'derech. As stated in the Brisa, that a man should not walk behind a woman on the road, even if it's his wife. Right, and then Lizdamna al Hagesher is Laken al Sadin, and if it happened to be on a bridge, you should go off to the side. Right, so that way she's not standing behind her. But call over Achora Isha Banar, anybody standing behind a woman, they have no portion in the world to come. So anyway, as far as Lakamasa nowadays, there is no problem walking behind a woman in normal times, and you don't have to cross the street or cross the other side of the bridge. That's not necessary. Also, typically dangerous thing to do nowadays, because if you start trying to do that in front of oncoming traffic, that's going to kill you. And as far as the last point of why you can't go after a woman in the river, so important thing to note is that back then, in order for women to cross the river, because they didn't want to have their clothes get ruined. And they used to only wear one cloak, right, or one large robe. So that when you got to the water, everybody would lift up the robe in order to cross the river. Depending on the height of the river, if you're walking behind a woman, that could be very indecent. So you should make a point of not walking directly behind a woman when she is crossing a river. Okay. Tanar Banan, Hamartzeh, Ma'ot Liisha, Miado Liada, O Miada Liado, Bishvil Sheistak Alba. Okay, so now we're gonna have more cases of the interactions with women, and so this is if you are counting out money for a woman, like you're putting it in her hand, or the reverse. In order to look at her, meaning the reason why you're doing this is, not because you're trying to pay her, but because you're trying to get some benefit as a voyeur from this process. If you had done this act, even if you had been like Moshe Rabbeinu, who is worthy of accepting Torah Sinai, you will never be able to be clean of this of going into hell. And this is what the pasuk Mishlei states, that from hand to hand, evil shall not go unpunished. You'll never be cleared from Gehenna As a side note, so a lot of the times when you see this very harsh language, it's always important to try and differentiate whether or not this is a polemical statement trying to give you to teach you that you should be very careful of it, but not necessarily to be taken literally, because it would be very hard to say that somebody's actually going to definitively go to hell without any possibility for tshuva for a single act. Yeah. Elmer Reb Nachman, Manoch al Ma'aretz. So Reb Nachman says that Manoch, the father of Shimshon, was an Am Haaretz, meaning he was somebody who didn't know anything. It says that Manoch got up and he walked after his wife. So if you'd known the proper, you know you're not supposed to walk behind your wife. So he doesn't know anything. So Matkiv le Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak El Miata Gabe El Kana. Rather we should learn it out from the story of we should learn what to do from El Kana. So what did Elkanah, father of Shmuel? So what did he do? So, but didn't Elkanah do the same thing? So, right? We also see that Elisha also followed after the mother of the child who had been taking care of him. Sorry, this is talking about the story after Elisha had been taken by a woman, and then she had and then she had and then her son had died. So then afterwards, this is talking about when he's going back when the woman came and is asking her and asking Elisha to check on her son and bring back to life. So in that story, it says that he walked after her. So then wait, how come then shouldn't Elisha also be going straight straight to Gehenna too? Like, how could they do this? Ella, so what did they? So what when we say walking after, what happened there? They were following her words and advice. So here too, he followed her words and advice, not literally following after. So therefore, then we're covering. Wait, then why is Manoch, father of Shimshon, a Amar? Amarashi, Lamai Damar of Nachman Manoch Amar. And what about the person and why does he say that Rav Nachman said that he's Amar? It's a filo beirav, nami lokra. Even so then wait, was he not? This is a problem because wait, why is that what was so bad about that one act? Didn't he read other psukim, right? Meaning from Reshit Diktiv, Vatakam Rivkav Naratev Derikav Na'ag Malim Vatilefna Acharei Ish below Lifnei Ish. So why is Manoch considered to be so ignorant? Because you should have learned it out from the story of Rivka and her maidservants. They rode on their camels behind Evan Abraham, not in front of him. So Amar B'Yochanan Acharei Ariv Lo Acharei Isha. So Rabbi Yochanan says better to walk behind a lion than walk behind a woman. Acharei Isha Lo Acharei Avodah Zarah. So and similar, but better walk behind a woman than it is to walk behind a Avodah Zarah. Acharei Avodah Zarah Lo Acharei Bet Knesset B'Shah Shvin Pavlik. It says it's better to walk behind Avodah Zarah than it is to walk to the back of the shul, the back of synagogue during time of prayer. So one could say that this is simply because it's extremely rude, but Rashi says no, it's more because it basically seems like by doing so you're denying God's existence in an obvious fashion because everybody else is praying and you're not. So Amar B'Yirmiyah Ben Elazar Kolatan Hashanim Shaya Adam Rishon Ben Indui Olid Ruchin V'Shedin V'Lilid. So
Rabbi, just on the previous point, that would be a good thing for people talking in shul. I am one of them. So if you're talking in shul and should be davening, you're denying God's existence. I speak of myself.
Could be.
It's Elul, so I'm getting into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes. So be careful about where you walk behind. So okay, so now I'm talking about all of the years that it's basically so after immediately following So this is following Midrash that immediately following Adam and Chava being kicked out of Gan Eden, he was basically he was ostracized from his wife and from everything else. So Kol Hashanim Shayadam Rishon Ben Idui Holid Ruchim Meshadim Lilin. He would give birth to spirits, demons, and female demons. Shema Brechidam Shoshim Lachana V'Yoled Bidmuto Ketsalmo. Right, so it says that he lived for 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness, after his image, right? And that's shape, right? So he had to give birth. He had the first son. He was basically, year next to almost zero, and then right that was Cain and Hevel, and then so then when he says shade, he says that now he finally gave birth to a son who looks like him. That means until now he didn't give birth to his own children. He gave birth to something else, meaning demons and spirits. Yeah. So main thing. Higher Meir Omer. Adam Rishon Chasid Godolaya. So the other problem is how are you saying that he's giving birth to all these weird demons and things? Like what's going on? Adam Rishon Chasid Godolaya. News that they used that he was very pious individual. Kiva Sharash Niknasa Mita Al Yado. Yeshabatani Meir Shloshim Shana. Uperish Binisha Meir Shloshim Shana. The Hela Zvizi to Ainim Absaro Meir Shloshim Shana. Right? So why are you saying that he was giving birth to all these weird demons? He was a great pious man, and once he saw that he made a mistake and he got punished, what did he do? He sat down and fasted 130 years, and he did not sleep with his wife 130 years, and he only wore the fig leaf that he clothed him with, and then the sin for 130 years to remind him of the sin. So how could he father demons? Like the Rameir said that he was saying that these were all caused by the semen that Adam and Rishon had accidentally emitted, and that's what made these demons be created. Okay, so then basically saying that Shikwas Zeramatella is what caused this. To sign Shikwas Zeramatella, it's often this is one of the examples where it is where Chachamim are being overly harsh. For a term, and it's important to differentiate between that and medical reality as well as philosophical reality. That Shikwas is not as bad as bringing demons into the world, or it says in other places, let's say Nida, that's if you flooded the world and destroyed it again, like the Mabul. A lot of these are statements simply to where Chazal are trying to say how again that aren't necessarily observed for people to train them not throw them aside. But it does not literally mean, as we mentioned before, about if you happen to have looked at a woman once, you're not necessarily guaranteed to always go to hell. So the same thing would apply to this one as well. Okay. The Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah ben Elazar Mikdash Shikol Shaldam Omer B'fanav V'kulo Shlo B'fanav. So you only praise somebody for a portion of how good they are in front of them, but you give them all the praises not in front of them. So where do we see that you only give them part of the praises? So again, this now we're talking about Noah. So Shem told Noah that I see that you are righteous in front of me. You the only righteous one. You are correct before me, right before me in this generation. But in fact, when he's not talking to him directly, he says even greater praise. Says Noah was a righteous man, perfect in generations. Meaning that that he walked with God. So that's a much greater praise than simply stating that you are righteous. Like it's a much longer praise because we wouldn't want to give somebody the full praise in front of them. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah ben Elazar Ma'adet Livnei Alez Zayit Terafafia, and by the Noah story, why is it when the dove comes back with a olive branch in its mouth? Amar Yono Thankosh Baruch Hu, Rabbanu Shalom, Yumuz Zonotai, Murim, Kazayit, Musarin, Biadecha, Val Yum Tokim Gidvash, Utfluya Bidei Vasavadam. Right, so basically it's because the dove said, "I'd rather be free than have to be and bitter than have to be fed by this human being." As says later, root from me falsehood and feed me my allotted portion. Okay, so we are going to stop here, and we'll continue, and we'll continue here tomorrow with more with more of these very nice agaritas. Before getting back into the Gemara tomorrow. So again, so today we started talking about Pasi Birot, how you would fix a well in order for you to be able to use it on Shabbat. I'll continue talking about the rest of the parak. And we also got into some interesting agaritot about Adam Arishon, and about Noach, as well as some advice for how to where and how you should be walking properly on the street. Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
One quick
Rabbi.
question.
Please.
With the Pasi B'Euros, so why are we more makel as far as allowing greater space than the other type of enclosures, for instance, like a storage area or a corral?
That's an excellent question. Which we'll hopefully get to as we continue on the parak. It's because it's in order for it to be functional and used, right? So it's a unique kula just for it, just for the special nature of having access to water. For more details as to why and how, hopefully the Gemara will be addressing that, and hopefully I'll add more on the reasoning behind it as we get to that point.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Okay.